Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to today's video. This is going to be the start of my wedding planning series. Basically, I'm going to take you along with every single thing that I do to do with wedding planning because it's going to take up a lot of my time. I'm not getting a wedding planner. I am going to plan the wedding myself practically. I know I'm going to have input from Ash, but I'm probably going to end up doing a lot of it myself. So I wanted to document this process with you, and basically for me this beginning video is just going to be about where to start when planning your wedding, like the biggest day of your life. Where do you even start? Because when I first started thinking about this, I realised that I have absolutely no idea, and over the last couple of days I've been doing a little bit of research about where to start when planning your wedding, getting wedding checklists out of the way, getting really good wedding apps to help me plan the wedding. So all of these things are things that I've been looking up over the last couple of days, and my son George is now napping for the afternoon, hopefully for a couple of hours. So I've got a couple of hours to sit down, film this video, go through some of the things that I have done already, like in terms of research and things for the wedding, and other things that I haven't done that I'm gonna start planning. I feel like I have got so much to do, but I do really want to take you guys along with me because it's just one of them things that I really want to share with you, and something that I feel like is missing on YouTube. There's lots of like professional wedding planners out there on YouTube. By the way, I'll link some of my favourite ones down below because they have been really helpful for me so far. But I feel like what's missing is like realistic, someone like me, a fiance, someone that's getting married, actually like vlogging their experience, especially in the UK. I feel like there's a lot of Americans, a lot of Australians, not many UK based people doing like wedding planning vlogs. So hopefully this is going to be helpful to someone in the future that is looking to get married in the UK and planning their wedding and just the process and all that kind of stuff. So first things first, the first thing that I did when I started thinking about wedding planning was going on to Bridebook. I basically just went on to the App Store on my phone to see if there were any really good wedding planning apps, because before you think about budget, before you think about guest list, I really wanted a tool that was really helpful in order to help me plan this wedding, and I found Bridebook, and I have to say I'm so impressed with how concise it is, how good it is. I just love it so much so far, and it has a complete checklist on there that you can use in order to know exactly what to do, when to do it. It gives you a time estimate and everything. So say you know roughly you want to get married in 12 months, then it gives you a checklist and it generates that, and it tells you like when to do things, what the next steps are, things you would easily forget. I definitely didn't realise that half of these steps are things that you'd have to do. So I found Bridebook so helpful for the initial step of like planning the wedding and getting a checklist sorted. So I've just put on here that we would potentially get married in May 2022. We don't actually know if we're going to get married in May 2022, but I would love to get married on the day that we got engaged a year later. Chances are it's going to be in Essex, because that's where we're from and that's where most of our friends and families are, which, because I'm filming this in June, it's saying it's 11 months to go, which is crazy. We got engaged on the 30th of May 2021, so I would absolutely love to get married then, but on or around that date is basically fine. I'm not that hard up on the fact that it should be then, but I wanted to show you guys the checklist because it generates this automatically, and it's amazing because so many of these things I would not have even known where to start. So this month it's saying we've got to start researching wedding venues, outline our budget, schedule visits to our favourite venues, and start the guest list. This has helped me massively in the first like few weeks of just like thinking about what we have to do, and then actually just having like a look ahead. It's really nice and concise, and you've only got like 4 or 5 steps each month, or like 2 steps in September for example, and it doesn't make it so overwhelming. Like if you've only got a few things to do each month, that way, you know, you haven't got, I mean the month before is a bit chaotic, but that's always going to be the case, right? It just doesn't make it as difficult to sort of, it doesn't make you as overwhelmed, I think. So I'm so in love with this checklist. I think it's such a good little tool, and I feel like every bride-to-be needs to use this. The second thing that I did when starting planning for the wedding was thinking about my guest list and thinking about our budget. Now, these two things sort of go hand in hand, because obviously the more guests you have, the more expensive it is to cater for those guests, whether you're doing food and drink, or if you're doing just the wedding breakfast, or if you're doing a buffet in the evening, all that kind of stuff. Basically, you have to have the guest list in order to know about prices for food and stuff. So that aside for a second, I started focusing on who I would like to invite, and I did a rough mock-up as to who I thought my fiance would like to invite, and then I showed him the list and he told me a couple of extra people that he would like on the list, and we've pretty much got our guest list down already. I mean, I'm sure this will change like several times beforehand, but as a rough guide as to how many guests we will have in the day and in the evening, it is really good that we've got our guest list sorted already. So again, this is our wedding guest list. I mean, we haven't sent out any of the invitations. I'll just show you that I've got 41 guests on my side. That is including day guests and evening guests. But you can, so on here, our total amount of guests that we've got so far is 96 guests for day and evening. For the full invite, it will be 84, and then evening is 12, I think. I feel like that doesn't sound right, but obviously we've got more to add for the evening, but we just didn't really need to do that just yet, because the day ones are the ones that will be paid for, I guess, for the catering and for the drinks and everything. So they're the ones that are the most important. So we've got 84 on there at the moment. I feel like that's a lot of day guests. I kind of want to get that down to 80 if possible. And then obviously anyone that we can't invite to the day, we'll invite to the evening. I feel like 80 day guests is a lot anyway, but this is just because Ash has a fairly big family. Let me show you. So on mine, it's 41. Most of mine are evening guests though. I think all of Ash's are day guests at the moment, because I haven't asked him to like whittle down. On here you can do invitation type, and you can do all day. And then once it goes down to all day, my guests are 29 guests. So a lot of my guests are evening guests. And then if we just scroll down to Ash's, let me just get that up. Yeah, Ash has got 55 guests in total in comparison to my 29. Yeah, it's just because one, Ash has got a huge family and they've all got kids and stuff. I don't have any brothers and sisters either, so that obviously bumps his numbers up. But also, I haven't asked him to change any from all day guests to evening only. So evening only, I've got 12 on my side, and then he hasn't got any. All of his are all day guests. So it might just be that he has to then go through and decide who he wants all day and then who he wants in the evening. That is definitely something that I'm going to have to ask him to do, but that's unfortunately not something I can do. But this is the first step anyway, deciding who we want at the day, and then obviously we can just decide if they get full invites or evening invites and vice versa. The third thing that I did when starting planning for the wedding was outline our budget. And obviously you guys know I really do try to keep to budgets on things. I don't see the need to spend lots of money on really unnecessary things a lot of the time. But I have to say, I feel like I'm completely out of character in what I'm about to tell you our budget is. I kind of thought our budget would be more the £10,000, £15,000, but actually we've decided that our budget is going to be £20,000, which is the same amount of money that I spent on the deposit for our house. Like, I can't believe that I'm about to spend £20,000 on a wedding day. But I am. I'm pretty sure that we are going to be able to fill that budget pretty easily. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we can do it cheaper, we absolutely will. But from initial searches, I feel like £20,000 for us, for the wedding that we want and the amount of guests that we have, is a realistic budget. I'm really grateful that my dad is actually giving us a lot of the money towards the wedding to help us out. Otherwise we would have had to do it on a much smaller budget. But my dad is being so generous and paying for the majority of this. So with that being said, I definitely want to make sure that it is a day to remember and best day of our lives and the best day for our guests, and I really hope it's going to be amazing. Literally cannot believe that I'm about to spend this on a wedding, but this is our, you know, outlined budget, what we think the wedding of our dreams will cost. And then I've actually, if you scroll down, which I'm not going to do yet because I'm going to do a separate video on what we think all of the supply, the venue and the suppliers and every single bit of breakdown that you could possibly think of is actually like outlined below, which I'm going to do a separate video on. The next one probably will be that. But everything that I've added up so far means that that is how much £19,685 our wedding would cost, and that is without honeymoon. So that is a hell of a lot of money. I'm actually going to scroll down on this side. It tells you basically like all the breakdown of what each individual thing might cost, and then on this side, I'm not going to show you, it has how much I've budgeted for each thing. So interestingly, I have actually started looking at a few venues and shortlisted a few on Bridebook, and it tells me here that the average quote is that much. That is without food, catering, accommodation, everything. That is just for the venue. But that's interesting that it does that. But yeah, I'll explain that a little bit more in the next section in terms of venues, because that's the next step. But it literally has a breakdown of every single thing you could possibly think of, and then you can budget accordingly, like how much things are going to cost, and then it just says like other, and you can obviously add your own sections as well. So I think this is such a good tool, and it's a really good alternative to a spreadsheet, I think. Another good thing is when you click on the item, so this is venue, I've just removed that, you can basically estimate what you think it might cost. So if I put in there what the quote was, for example, it was like £6,000, put that in there, and then when you actually book it, you can say how much it is. And it's also got a notes section, so you can say like when deposits are available, when the payments are due, who's paying, all that kind of stuff. So you've got all of this information in one place. This is one of the best things about Bridebook, is that you can do this for every single thing, and then because there's so many different moving pieces in a wedding, you've actually got it all in one place, and then you can refer back to it in a month's time and know exactly what's happening with what. So I just think this is such a good tool, and I'm buzzing about Bridebook, I can't lie. The fourth thing that we did was actually just have a chat with each other about what kind of venue slash vibe we wanted for our wedding day. Like, we can't really start planning a wedding until you know what kind of vibe you want, and for us, I think we have settled on a barn slash like a rustic vibe. It doesn't necessarily have to be a barn, but in my head I'm just thinking beams, fairy lights. I do kind of picture a barn when I think of it in my head, and I think Ash is similar. So we will definitely look at alternative styles and things, but I think we've probably honed down, we've both got it in our minds that we would like a barn venue, which narrows the search down massively before you even start looking at wedding venues. Like I said, I've been using Bridebook for all of this stuff, and on Bridebook, when you're searching for venues, you can select which kind of venue you want. So if you want a barn style venue, you can tick that, and it will only show you barn style venues. So that is really, really helpful. I feel like maybe I will look at a couple of alternatives that aren't barn style, but I have to say I have fallen in love with so many from pictures already that I'm very, very, very impressed with the Bridebook search app, everything. I think it's brilliant. Okay, so this is me searching for venues in Essex. I haven't got any filters on this at all, but it comes up with loads of places. I've actually been to a wedding here before, and it was amazing. I mean, it's called That Amazing Place. It was so lovely though, so I definitely want to check that one out, and it's really close to where I usually visit in Essex anyway, so I think I will probably book a viewing for that one. Even if it isn't necessarily the vibe we were going for, I think it's worth seeing alternatives to what you think you want, because chances are you'll come away thinking something completely different. So yeah, there are loads and loads and loads of different venues on Bridebook, but a really good thing, and it does, so say let's go on That Amazing Place. So one of the really good things about Bridebook is, yes, you have loads of pictures available, and there's like 74 pictures on this one, which is amazing. You can scroll down on everything, and then you can look at how much it might cost. So these are like vague starting prices and maximum prices, how much their in-house catering looks like as well, and what they offer, their packages and all that kind of stuff, which I just think is really, really helpful, and it does this for every single venue it's got on here. Another thing that I really like is, I'm just going to scroll to this side here, you can actually, all of my details are just above, so I'm just cropping that out, but it actually just, you can just press request the brochure, and the venue will then just send you basically all of the information that it has about pricing and accommodation and catering and all that kind of stuff, and it literally is within a click of a button, which I just think is so handy. Obviously Bridebook doesn't have every supplier ever on there, of course it doesn't, but I have noticed that the venues is like the very well stocked in terms of like how many options they've got on there. I've even tried to search like via Google and on alternative like search engines and things, and I haven't found loads that aren't on Bridebook. So for the venue specifically, I've been very, very impressed with the amount of selection that Bridebook have on there. And it's obviously really easy because then you can save it to your shortlist if you want to save it for later or like inquire about it. It's just so easy to do. That brings me to number 5, which is start inquiring to your favourite venues and saving them to your shortlist and figuring out which ones you want to go and visit based on the price that they quote you. This step sounds easy, but for some reason wedding venue prices and whether they've got accommodation and whether they've got caterers, in-house caterers, or if you have to bring your own, it's all so mismatched that actually it's really difficult to like piece together the final price. I've spent like evening after evening going through all of the prices that they provide you for the venue. Like the different days obviously cost different amounts. If it's a Saturday, it's going to cost more, versus a Thursday, it's going to cost less. Also the season, it's going to cost less or more or whatever. But there's also all the added extras. So if you want to use the bridal suite, sometimes that's included, sometimes it's extra. If you want the accommodation for your guests, sometimes it's included, sometimes it's extra. For the catering and the food and the drink, everything, I didn't realise how expensive that would be. And if the venue only has in-house caterers that you can use, you have to use those caterers that for your wedding if you use that venue. So obviously that gives you much less flexibility, and it obviously bumps the price up a hell of a lot if you go for that option. Once you've figured out all the pricing from all the venues that you've reached out to, again, I did all of this via Bridebook and then they came back to me via email. I just set up a little folder in my email inbox called wedding, and I'm saving every single like bit of information for the wedding into that folder just so it doesn't get jumbled up with all the other crap that I've got in my inbox. Once they've given me like quotes and they've given me the price list and they've told me all the information about the accommodation and the catering and this and that and the other, I save it to my notes on Bridebook. That way it's a really easy comparison for what is included in each deal. So for example, I'll show you now basically all the information I've got so far from these venues, and I haven't got all of the information just yet, but I'll show you all the information I've got so far for the venues, and you'll see where the prices differ and things. At first glance you think one's really, really cheap, but actually once you add everything else on in terms of the catering, the accommodation, all that stuff, actually the pricing isn't too different for any of these really. So it's really interesting that at first glance you think it's going to be really, really affordable, and actually the budget is, you know, it's stretching already. Okay, so these are some of the venues that I've been looking at, and I've got quotes from some of them back. This is a little bit later in the evening, by the way, because I was waiting on the quote for this one. I've literally just been looking through their brochure now. They didn't have an online brochure. They sent this, which was like in a luxury, like it's so nice. So I've just been looking through that and I've added all the details into my Bridebook here. So it's really easy to compare all of the like costings and things. When I was saying that basically at first glance you would say that this is the most expensive one and like this one is the cheapest because that's how much the venue alone costs. But as you can see, I've added like details here as to what the total price will be. So for this one, the total price, including all of the things that I mentioned here, including the guest house for people to stay over, where we would stay, all of the food and drink available that we would like, and then yeah, that is the total amount for this one. So it's actually 14,000 for that entire package, not that much. Whereas say we go down to Colville Hall, this one is 15,000. So it is still cheaper, but in terms of by how much buy, it's not that much. So yeah, it is interesting once you actually piece everything together. And like I said, it is like you have to find loads of different, like what they do for catering, what they do for accommodation, and ideally for us we would quite like, well, we would definitely like somewhere for us to sleep obviously on site, and somewhere for maybe a few guests to sleep on site as well, which is why we are looking for sort of separate guest accommodation if possible. And I have actually just been looking at the Priory. It looks amazing, but it doesn't have any accommodation on site, and considering all the others that I've looked at have got accommodation, I think that kind of rules that one out. Although it is a gorgeous venue and the food looks amazing. I mean, the food is also very expensive, but for the same price, so 15,400 with no accommodation, I could get this one with accommodation, or the Coval Hall with accommodation, or Blake Hall with accommodation. This one is actually working out the cheapest so far. This is 12,000 including all of these things, but the fact that I've got all of these notes and I've been able to compare everything for the quotes that I've got through so far in one place on my shortlist, I love it so much. I feel like it's just such an admin dream, because if I were to go on my emails right now and go on my wedding, like honestly already I've only been emailing venues and a couple of photographers, and honestly like this already I would just be lost in this. So the fact that I've got my little wedding shortlist and I can put all the details in there accordingly is just so helpful. I have inquired about a few others as well, but I haven't actually heard back from them yet, so I haven't had the chance to add them to my shortlist. But I'm just so excited about these guys, honestly, so excited. Other than that, guys, the next step along, I guess, is going to be budget breakdown. Like, how much do you think you're going to be able to spend on each separate category for your wedding? And for me, I have done that budget breakdown, and I will do a video next Wednesday about that, exactly how much I think in my head things are going to cost, and if we're going to be able to even stick to this £20,000 budget, which is a lot of money, but I'm already struggling with it. So it is just one of them things that we're going to have to make compromises here and there, which is absolutely fine. I definitely am fine to make compromises. But anyway, that will be next week's video. That's pretty much everything that I've done so far in terms of wedding planning. That's where I started with our wedding planning, because I feel like it is such an overwhelming, daunting task. I really wanted to break this down into stages, which Bridebooks helped me with massively. Like, absolutely cannot tell you how impressed I am with that app. It's also on a desktop version as well, so you can do it on your laptop if you wanted. You can also, for suppliers and things, you can also like insert specific suppliers that aren't on Bridebook that you've researched sell elsewhere. So for example, if I found someone on Instagram to do my hair and makeup, I could just, and they're not on Bridebook, I can just put them in and still have that whole everything's in one place kind of thing, because that's what I really like about the app, is that I can literally compare people and things really easily. Obviously, next step is going to see the venues and then go from there, have a proper discussion with them all about the packages that they offer. Obviously, I've got all of the information that I've got so far on paper, but when it comes to in person, they might have alternative options that we're not aware of just yet. But I'm so excited. We're planning a trip down to Essex/Cambridgeshire, because that's where most of the venues are, in the near future, and I will vlog around as much as I possibly can, so that I can, one, remember what I liked and didn't like about the venue, and two, so that I can share it with you guys and talk you through what I thought about each place and things like that. And hopefully when we choose a venue, I can share where that's going to be and all that kind of stuff. I'm really excited for that day, because once we've chosen a venue and the date, then things will start to marry up around that. Whether they have in-house caterers, that might be sorted within that package. Then we can start thinking about dresses, then we can start thinking about everything else that happens around weddings, like photographer, videographer, florists. Oh, I'm so excited. I am so excited. But one thing at a time, and I will keep doing these videos to keep you up to date as to what like the next 5 steps are, for example, and then the next 5 steps. But for now, I think I'm just going to leave it there, because I don't want to overwhelm anyone. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed already, but like I said, first 5 steps of where to start when planning your wedding. This is what I've done. I have actually used the advice of some amazing YouTubers, like wedding planners that are YouTubers as well. My absolute favourite person that I've been watching on YouTube is Bluebird Creative, and I think her YouTube channel is called Bluebird Bride Academy. I'll link her down below, and I'll pop up a couple of my favourite videos of hers here. So helpful. I cannot tell you how helpful she's been so far, and I've only just got started, so I know the sun's just literally just started shining. I know that I'm going to be using her so much, like her videos, her free content, and I've been downloading her checklist and stuff as well. So I'm really excited about her content and the fact that it's going to help me so much, and I know that so many other UK brides as well. But anyway guys, that is where I have started with the wedding planning process. I hope that everything else goes as smoothly as this beginning part. I feel like the beginning part is probably the easiest part, and then when it gets to actually like booking things, that's when it gets a bit more difficult. But I hope that I'm gonna do it in little snippets like this and it will go smoother because I'm keeping it like compact into like sections. Maybe. I don't know whether that's really naive of me or not. But anyway, thank you so much for watching the first episode of Wedding Wednesdays. I'm really excited to carry on this series, and I will link the playlist down below if you're watching this in a few months time and there's more videos already up. I'll link the wedding planning playlist down below. But I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch up with you guys in the next one. Bye!
'Cause you glue all the pieces back together. Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better. Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever. And I feel so free, oh my sweet baby.